Second T20 International, and we're all excited here in the very dry studios of Cricbuzz Live. Not the driest start to the day in Melbourne, but that's the city that often has 4 seasons in a day. So Melbourne's monsoon has moved over. It's dry, it's still overcast over there, but the important word, of course, is dry, and we are going to have an on-time start. We've had a toss already. Australia will be batting first to try and put runs on the board and put some pressure on Team India to try and square the series. In the studio, one familiar face and one returning face. Welcome back again to Aakash Chopra, and of course, Joy, great to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Now, I have to tell you something, that in the last game, we usually had our set of predictions, and Aakash got his spot on. So did Virat Kohli in terms of both the score and the final result. The only thing I have to say in welcoming you back, the only thing I got right on day one was Ronaldinho.
That's a good one, actually. If you work it out all the way through, saying that 2000 must be Olympics, exactly. Who would you play in the Olympics, football. But the ones who worked it out, they were superb. And just to ask a question like that and see all the answers makes me feel so good.
And of course, we are playing at a ground today that's also seen a lot of Olympic action way back in 1956.
Yes, exactly. A lot of Olympic action. It's also one of the largest fields. I mean, to see, especially Western Australia. I remember Rod Marsh in a famous match cursing and running because he had to go back and retrieve the ball, and the ball was trickling to the boundary. I think the batsman ran 5 and then he kicked it over to make sure that nothing happened.
But Aakash, I know we talked the other day with in the presence of Virendra Sehwag about your memories of 2003-04. No matter what else happens anywhere in Australia, Boxing Day, walking out in that iconic stadium when it's full is...
It's something else. And we actually felt that we were in a boxing ring because we were getting hit on the head quite regularly. Viru got, I think, hit twice. I got hit once. Dizzy and all of that. 65,000 people. So one stand was still getting built in 2003.
Yeah, they were demolishing the members stand.
Correct. Right. So even though it was full house, it wasn't 110,000, it was still 65-70, which was the biggest crowd that I'd ever seen. And all that it takes is they only have to breathe. They don't even have to shout, and you could actually hear like cacophony when you're standing in the middle and you're preparing for the next ball or the first ball, as was the case. That's a memory forever. But you spoke about this being a very big outfield. I can promise you, in that very game itself, our faster bowlers, Zahir was there, Ashish was there, they refused to stand on long leg, which was about 80 meters away, for Matthew Hayden, because he was sweeping that ferociously. So somebody was standing 80 meters away, had no time to move. So that also tells you a bit about the strength, that the brute power that man had. Matthew Hayden was unstoppable.
But yeah, just looking at this Australian side, even though they're 1-0 up, they're missing that kind of a person who comes at you. They still got the strength, they still got the Maxwells of the world who hit the ball, but maybe looking back at that first game, that's the kind of personality they're missing.
I fully agree with you. I mean, there is, what they call very often in cricket, the enforcer. He's a guy out who's going to come and say, okay, which of you guys is going to come second? Because obviously I'm going to come first. That kind of personality is now missing for this current Australian team. They've won a match, but they haven't shown the self-belief that the sides that he would have faced would have, Langer, Gilchrist, they keep coming at you, the Pontings of the world, This is not that kind of a side. There's a side definitely searching for itself, and it might find itself, it might become an enforcer in the future, but definitely not now.
True. So they've invested a lot in Darcy's shot, and if he doesn't turn it around now, his immediate career will be cut short for sure, because last 10 innings I think he's not scored, he's not gotten into double digits.
He's crying out for puns, and when he's not doing well, that's the kind of pun that he's going to get more often than not. But enough about Australia for the moment. Let's talk about Team India. We were thinking maybe Yuzvendra Chahal will get a look in with India 1 down, but India have gone in unchanged. So let's remind you of India's 11 as they're going to be fielding first here after winning the toss at a windy MCG. Thoughts, gentlemen? Any of you expecting Chahal to have come back into the squad?
I personally feel, firstly, so we have put Virat at 3, so I hope that happens. That's for us to discuss later. But then I think India's hand once again is being played by the weather. It's been overcast, pitch was under covers. The moment you see all of that, there'll be more assistance for the faster bowlers on this surface. So however much you wanted to get Chahal back into the playing 11, there was no way that you could have managed that, because Krunal Pandya / Washington Sundar, one of the two, have to play, because number 7, you need somebody who can bat. that means Kuldeep Yadav is your only only spinner, and the 3 faster bowlers. So this pitch was crying out loud, is what I feel, to play 3 faster bowlers, and that's it. Then you can't really have too many choices.
So Krunal with the double L gets a look in.
Yeah, see, the basic problem is that we don't have the fast bowling all-rounder either. So that if you had a fast bowling all-rounder, maybe you could have got Chahal into the side. If Hardik was there, given this situation, you just have to have a situation where you're playing the fast bowlers. And the fact of it is, the tail is what would be bothering them, because it is a fairly long tail. I mean, Bhuvneshwar Kumar has not been the batsman he promised to be for a long, long time. And therefore, Krunal is extremely important for the position he is in. The only problem is that they'll be hoping that the ball now is relatively dry and keeps dry till they finish their overs, the spinners finish their overs, because that's a big issue with them.
Well, Aakash mentioned briefly that we'll talk about Virat Kohli's position later. Why do it later? Let's do it right now. Absolutely.
Okay. Can I start with basically a basketball analogy? And it's a very simple analogy. Michael Jordan, when teams used to play against Michael Jordan, they always knew that he'd take 15, 20, 30 shots in a game. Okay? The only thing they could ensure, they could not stop him from taking the shot. The only thing they could ensure was making sure that he didn't take the shot from the place he wanted to, or at the time he wanted to. That's all you can ensure. You cannot stop him from taking a shot. Similarly, if you have a class batsman like Virat Kohli, the one thing that the opposition would be happy with is to see him playing out of position or reacting to a circumstance other than doing it. Now, in my belief, and Akash will know much more, 1, 2 and 3 are what we call active batting positions. Why? Because even if 1 gets out in the second ball, 3 will still go out. Number 3 will still go out and try and hit the ball. From 4 onwards, you're actually a reactive batting position. From 4 onwards, you're saying, oh shit, we've just lost 2 early wickets, let me play slowly. Or we are, 110 for 2 now, I can go and play freely. But it's reactive. Do you want your best batsman to necessarily be best free scoring batsman to be in a reactive situation? That's my point.
And that's exactly what the discussions that have been happening by saying that, if a wicket falls early, Rahul should go in there. But that's again reactive, because then you're trying to predict when that second wicket falls.
Correct.
So Aakash, before you bring you in, let's have a look at the numbers in terms of Virat Kohli batting at number 4 in 2018. Remember, he's played 8 innings in 2018. 6 times he batted at number 4. Once he opened against Ireland, once he batted down at 7. But we are only focusing on Virat at number 4 in 2018, and those aren't impressive figures. So,
see, I'm not reading too much into these numbers, just 2018 specifically, because he hasn't played throughout. He has missed more than he has actually played in this format. But let's focus more on IPL 2016, batting at number 3. 2016 T20I is generally batting at number 3. So those are sizable numbers and definitely must be looked closely. These T20Is in 2018, I'm not bothered. Just to add to what Joy has already mentioned, see, one, of course, you're reacting. Secondly, you're trying to accommodate someone by moving your best asset out of his batting position. Why would you want to do that? As an opponent, I'd be very happy if Virat gets only 50 balls to bat. In total. So if he walks out in the 11th over, 12th over, I'll be ecstatic. I said fantastic, because not just the fact that he's batting out of his position, secondly, he's half as effective, I feel, if you don't allow him to have some runs under his belt by the time 13th, 14th over kicks in, because he's not your typical finisher. He's someone who will take time, who will hit boundaries, and will then dictate the proceedings as he wish. But if he's batting only in the 12th over, well done. I'm happy with Rahul, Shikhar and Rohit.
I'll go back to another basketball analogy. When LeBron James
says, I'm a little disappointed. I thought some volleyball analogies come
that
out.
will come as well. It'll come as well. But see, when LeBron comes, one of the things they tell you is guard him close so he can't run at you. Because what happens is once he runs at you, he gets what they call a head of steam. Then it's very difficult. It's impossible to stop him. So Virat as a batsman is exactly like that. If he gets that head of steam, as he's talking about, play 30, 35, 40 balls, hitting it well, then he can kill you. But he's not the guy who will come in and immediately start hitting sixes. He needs that head of steam. Give it to him, please.
Yes,
and he has to do it himself, actually. That's the best thing. Nobody has to do it for him. If he is the captain, he decides where he bats.
Yes, so we've talked about Ronaldinho the other day, we've got in Michael Jordan, LeBron James. It's quite a show, and we're calling it Cricbuzz Live, but that's the beauty of it. It spreads across the world, it spreads across sport. Let's spread ourselves across from India to Australia. Let's get back to them in looking at their playing 11, because they've had a late change. The big man, Billy Stanlake, I'm not sure from head to ankle how far down it is, but he somehow managed to roll his ankle over in practice, which means a late change sees Nathan Coulter-Nile, which probably from Australia's point of view is not the worst ankle rollover ever.
I was actually in last time when we were here discussing is there a possible change. I was in favor of playing Nathan Coulter-Nile come what may, either for Behrendorff or Billy Stanlake. Stanlake happens to be the guy who's now sitting out for a different reason, but I think they're better off with Nathan Coulter-Nile on a surface that will give him some bounce, some lateral movement. He'll definitely give them control, and he is, in my opinion, is if you were to just put them in a pecking order, I'll pick him before Behrendorff and before Billy Stanlake, just for the kind of consistency he brings to the table. Otherwise, there is just too much of inexperience when you look at the current fast bowling department.
Given the fact that, you know, they've got their resources who they've decided to rest for this, all the Starks and Hazelwoods of the world, yes, being saved up for the 5-day format, but, you know, they have played this format before and we've seen how effective it can be even in the IPL.
No, absolutely, and I think this is the one format where Australia currently has a bit of a lot of stock out there. There's Coulter-Nile, all the players you're talking about. They have that kind of thing. In fact, if you look at any other position, really Darcy Short is not the kind of player who should be playing for Australia. I mean, on the kind of Australian sides we've seen for a long time, he wouldn't be playing. But fast bowling is one place where they have a profligate number of players right now, and I think it's just a like for like, almost like for better, as he's saying. Possibly. I like Stanlake because the extra bounce he gives, which is a bit awkward for, especially for Indian batsmen. But yeah, Stanlake for Coulter-Nile is no captain will take more than a heartbeat thinking about and saying fine.
You know, the other thing that actually Nathan Coulter-Nile gives you is bowling in the death overs. What did we see in the previous game? Marcus Stoinis bowling the 15th and the 17th over. I thought it was a huge miscalculation on Aaron Finch's part. He bowled well and it turned out all right, but you wouldn't want that to happen again. Nathan Coulter-Nile could be that guy. Billy Stanlake won't be, because he doesn't do that for Sunrisers Hyderabad as well. He's someone who will hit the deck hard, ideally 3 overs in the first power play itself, just set up wickets and then beat people with pace. But not the guy who you want to bowl in number 18th over or in the 20th over.
There was an interesting little tete-a-tete between Virat Kohli and Marcus Stoinis at the end, because of course they're going to be teammates next year's IPL, and he was like, yeah, you were good today, but you need to do that for me.
So, you know, this match for a lot of the Australian team is like this one gigantic Harrods shop window. Okay, this is the shopping list for the IPL. Come show yourself as bright as possible, because the IPL is round the corner. More importantly, the auction's round the corner.
Now it's very dangerous, because that is when Glenn Maxwell comes to his own, no?
And
just before the auction, he's already announced himself.
He's in the shopping basket.
So, and he's already announced himself that, you know, I'm good enough. IPL may not be happening in India, so outside India I'm absolutely fine. So expect something from him again.
Three men in that Australian top order, as we said, are going to be in that shopping basket. We're talking Captain Aaron Finch, we're talking Glenn Maxwell, and for better or worse, Darcy Short. He was brilliant for Tasmania in the Big Bash, not quite as effective in the IPL, but if he explodes, he can be explosive. So have a look at those numbers.
So obviously Glenn Maxwell, when you look at T20Is, the numbers for all of them actually are not that bad, but when you look at the IPL, the numbers have plummeted. IPL 2018 wasn't a great one for Australians, pretty much. A couple of them didn't arrive at all. Those who did not really set the world on fire. Maxwell, I think teams are going to have a rethink. I feel that his IPL numbers in India especially are very
I
very
think the
moderate.
operative word out here is India, because if it's played in South Africa and the UAE, I think Maxwell's the best IPL player, world T20 player, if you play it in the UAE. That, I mean, he just has that tournament flat there. He's 555 odd runs. He had 500 runs in those 4-5 innings. After
Averaging just under 100.
After that, he did nothing in India. If you look back after that, he did nothing in India almost. He just had 1 or 2 splutters here and there. But if this is definitely going abroad, as they're saying it is, well, then he could be a pick.
That should be interesting. But coming back to the game, I know we've got two gentlemen here who love to talk about their numbers and the professorial part of cricket. Now that we've left basketball behind, which of course is Duckworth Lewis' turn.
Correct.
What an amazing, I mean, Aakash, you pointed it out the other day before anyone really realized what was happening. India scored more runs, ended up on the losing side.
And it's not for the first time. It's third or the fourth time that it has happened. The team chasing has scored more and still won. And previously, have
a look. 3 of them in ODIs, and this particular one in a T20 scenario.
And India have been involved now 3 times out of those 4 games. So yes, that's been the case. And a few times teams chasing have scored less and still ended up on the winning side as well, because that's the whole premise of Duckworth-Lewis system. There are three factors: number of overs lost, more importantly when those overs are lost, and the number of wickets that you have, the resources that you have at your disposal. So if we go back to just the last game, 16.1 over was when the rain came and they had only 5 balls to play. They had wickets in hand, and therefore the number of runs were added. The significant chunk was added because they could not recalibrate. But if it happened, say in the 5th over, it was a 17 over game, but happened and we got to know about it in the 5th over itself, there wouldn't have been such amount of incremental value. But then one thing I think DL and S method doesn't take into account is, one is recent form, and second is the fact that Jasprit Bumrah, your best bowler, most economical on the day, had 2 of the remaining 3 or 4 overs.
And Bhuvaneshwar had one.
So if you don't take into account those factors, then it gets skewed a little bit, and therefore I feel, and also the emphasis on the number of wickets, the resources. For 50 over cricket, I think DL and S is still fine. For T20 cricket, maybe Jayadevan, maybe the VJD method is slightly better suited.
Yeah, see, Jayadevan also has one other advantage, which is that if you see Duckworth-Lewis turn, the basic method is saying that a team will actually accelerate throughout. Whereas Jayadevan actually turns down and says that you will accelerate in the beginning, then slow down in the middle, and then accelerate towards the end. So that basically fundamentally is how teams actually calibrate their innings. Whether it's T20 or 50 over cricket, that's what happens. The interesting, I say that is the only decent thing to happen in the ICL is the fact that they used Jayadevan instead of Duckworth-Lewis.
TNPL also had it actually this time. TNPL had embraced, because this is your Indian method, and it also takes into account, if I've got my information right, is recent form.
Yeah.
Because that's also critical. Last 10 matches, if you're you go at a certain rate, don't expect the same guy to now go in a different manner. For England, for example, you've got a very strong lower batting order and you're 4 down. Well, that should not be taken as a disadvantage. It's actually an advantage, because people batting at 5, 6, 7, 8 are perhaps your best hitters and are in great form. But DL and S won't take that into account.
Which is what?
Whereas the West Indies, suppose the same situation, they're from 7, Jason Holders, from there the tail is on.
Correct.
Same situation, you cannot have the same circumstances. So form is a huge thing, and when you've scored your runs, I mean, that's
And the fact is, Duckworth-Lewis turn is being used for the outcome of a cricket match. When we see cricket predictors, the modern day predictors, they're using all these factors.
True.
As Aakash said, form, what's your batting order like, who's to come, and therefore they base all those factors and then say, okay, we're looking at 190.
And the bowling resources as well. Who is likely to bowl the number of the remaining overs? Because
so that's what batting resources are considered, bowling resources aren't.
Correct. So bowling resources are always overlooked, that they don't really, as if they don't matter. But of course they do. If Jasprit Bumrah and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar are going to bowl 17, 18, 19, 20th, boss, good luck to you if you're thinking you're going to get 50 out of those 4 overs. Even if DLS actually tells you that you will get that far, I don't think you will.
But coming back to reality, we talked a little bit about Bhuvaneshwar Kumar being given 3 overs at the top and Rohit Sharma using Khalil Ahmed differently from Virat Kohli. Now, will the team management along with the captain have had a discussion saying that should we do things differently? It's going to be a new day, must-win game. Do you expect things differently in the first 6?
My thing is, I don't think anyone knows how this wicket is going to play, really. They really don't know, and we are not so familiar with the circumstances with the conditions as the Australians will be. They'll play it by ear. And if he's a good captain, in fact, one of my problems with Virat as a captain is I think he tends to stick to his plan even when there's a time for a bit of flexibility. I think Rohit is slightly more flexible as a captain. When things are going, he's prepared to change more. I think that's the one thing, Virat's inflexibility. So I would like to see in this case for him looking at the conditions, saying he's doing well, give him another one, finish it off here.
But while what he's saying is absolutely right, but how you start a particular innings is something that's pre-decided. So you know pretty much who's going to bowl the first over, the second over, the third over, more or less. So I actually of the opinion that yes, Khalil one should open the bowling. At least bowls he must bowl at least 2 overs in the power play overs, and get Krunal Pandya to bowl an over or 2. You know, the idea is to actually mix it up so nicely that you have plenty of resources available to you for the remaining 14 overs. In the previous match, I thought India had already laid all their cards on the table, and as an opponent, I knew which over number is going to be bowled by which bowler, and he didn't really have that kind of flexibility because Bumrah had bowled only 2, he had to bowl 18th and 20th. Bhuvneshwar had bowled 3, so he can only bowl the 19th over. So that's it. So that your fate is sealed, and I can go after the bowlers in the middle span. But now if Bumrah has 3 left, for example, and Bhuvi has got 2, Maxwell going well, let me get my Bumrah in, let me give an over to Bhuvneshwar Kumar, because Maxwell against pace, raw pace, is susceptible if the ball is somewhere here.
But India are familiar to this position in the sense they've been 1-0 behind against England at last year in a T20I series, come back to win the next 2. So
they're the comeback kings of T20 cricket, absolute comeback kings of T20 cricket. So yeah, you can, but I think again these are things that numbers tend to tell stories that they're not always true. Those circumstances were very different. I think this is very different. I think though, in principle, I say that this is the weakest Australian side in terms of spirit that we've ever had the opportunity to tour against. And this, because T20s are where the tour is starting, it's a very important time for us to establish the pecking order of this tour. But it's not going to be as easy as we think it is. I mean,
and I think T20, if you look at this Australian setup, see, who are you looking at in a T20 game? Match winners, impact players. They've got Lynn, they've got Finch, they've got Darcy Short. Yes, he's not fired, but you know for sure if he has his day, he will take you apart. Then you've got Maxwell coming down the order. So they've got enough things going in their favour with regards to their batting as well, and 3 of them actually fired last time. Finch, Lynn and Maxwell. If the same gets repeated...
Don't forget Stoinis is batting at the end.
Yes, Stoinis is actually fairly good with the ball, with the bat. So they do have quite a few bases covered in T20 cricket especially. So I think the closest these 2 teams come to each other is this format. So expect a humdinger. I won't expect India to just come out and roll over Australia. It won't happen like that.
And it's going to be maybe slightly unfamiliar conditions. We saw hands in pockets there. It is chilly with Melbourne. We said 4 seasons in a day. I might have put the monsoon out the way, but don't forget that wintry breeze that blows across.
Melbourne weather is like Glenn Maxwell's batting form. You never know when it's coming, you never know when it's going.
What kind of a score are we talking at? Not predictions yet, just what do you think Australia will be looking at as something they'll feel safe with?
Look, I think it really depends. If Finchy goes out there, they see it and they see that the ball's coming onto the bat, there's not too much happening. I'd say they'd look at a 170, 175, definitely, not more.
You know, you can't go below that any which ways, what I feel, given what happened in Gaba. So we all thought there is more in the pitch for the faster bowlers, but still India really ran them close, and that was when Rohit and Virat both failed, and so did KL Rahul. So 3 of your top four not scoring runs, and you still managing 169 in a 17-over game, and it wasn't a 20-over game. So you know that you still need at least 170 plus to put
we had
pressure.
the great finisher.
Dinesh Karthik, of course, he's there. He's there, but then okay. He's been outstanding, but a finisher's job is to actually finish things off.
You missed a little bit of the discussion off the field the other day with regards to...
But I also said that, you know, a finisher's job is to finish things off.
Fair enough, fair enough. And you would have been disappointed had he finished things off, because Aakash was ordering sweets for the entire studio.
I did actually.
Yes.
I said if he finishes it off, 5 kilo of jalebi for everyone.
Thank you. I mean, what is this plan? I mean, nutrition industry, which industry is paying you off? You know, fitness industry, that okay, you need to go to the gym tomorrow.
Maybe yes.
All right, so we have got the joy factor coming up next. I was strong enough to get it right the last time around, and I hope I haven't spoiled anything with 1956 mentions here. Okay, good.
Not today.
Go ahead.
Let's have a look at this one. Okay, what specifically connects Glenn Maxwell with Mohammad Hafiz, Danny Morrison, and a guest who was in our studios a couple of days ago? The list is definitely not exhaustive.
Okay, so it's the 4th guy is Virendra Sehwag.
The 4th guy is Virendra Sehwag, and the list is not exhaustive at all. There are lots more names.
His wheels start turning immediately. Last time around, before we finished the show, he was already like,
it's not a cricketer.
To be a cricketer.
It's not a cricketer.
So we had a few hints going. So
he knows enough money, how much money there used to be in cricket in those days.
That was the big hint that Virendra Sehwag came up with. He said, I was not thinking cricket for only the money reason, not because he connected it to Sydney 2000 Olympics. He didn't care about all that. He said, money कौन cricketer बनाता है इतना? बस खत्म, खल्लास.
Unless your name is Virat Kohli, he said इतना तो वो भी नहीं बनाता यार. छोड़. He has already got all that sorted out.
All right.
He would have known. Yeah.
Answers with hashtag Cricbuzz Live. We've just about got enough time in the show. We're going to be back in the 10th over with Cricbuzz Combox, but we are not leaving until we get a prediction from our two guests and this man who couldn't predict anything at all. All right, Aakash, you're up first. Score prediction.
Score prediction 172.
Spot on. He's got a 2 added to it.
It may or may not happen, but 172.
Oh, I love it.
What the hell? I think they're going to get them. 146.
146, okay.
I'm not allowed to normally be in between, but that's the score I wanted to be at. So I'm going to stick to being in between. 159.
All right, then.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that exactly in between? I'm not a mathematician, unlike those professors we talked about on the show. But thank you, Joy. Thank you, Aakash. We'll see you for Cricbuzz Combox. And of course, at the halfway stage, what will India be chasing to try and make it 1-1 in this fascinating series? Let's all spice up for Melbourne.